You never know. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Mr. Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotar of the Srimad. The Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Astotar the Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktabinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Now, I turned the fans off, but now I'm thinking it's kind of warm in here. Should we open the doors at least? It's kind of cooler out there. Yeah, not too far, just maybe a foot. See? And this one too, behind, we'll get some cross. Thank you. Thanks, Evan. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 4th day of July, 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, HG Dravida Swami Prabhupada. We're studying chapter 4 entitled Transcendental Knowledge, and we are on text 35 at the bottom of page 221. Evan, you need page 221. Okay. Yad Gyatva Napunar Moham Evam Yasyasi Pandava Yena Bhutani Asheshani Drakshasi Atmani Atomahi Yadgatva Napunarmoham Evam Yasasi Pandava Yena Bhutani Sheshani Draksasyatman Hatomahi Yadgatva Napunarmoham Evam Yasasi Pandava Yena Bhutanya Sheshani Draksasyatman Hatomahi Yaggatva Napunarmoham Evam Yasasi Pandava Yena Bhutanya Sheshani Draksasyatman Hatomahi Yaggatva Napunarmoham Evam Yasasi Pandava Yena Bhutanya Sheshani Draksasyatman Hatomahi. Go ahead, Boo. Yaggatva Napunarmoham Evam Yasasi Pandava Yena Bhutanya Sheshani Draksasyatman Hatomahi. Anyone else? Okay. Zoom? No Zoom either. You want to try it? Okay, you go next, okay, Evan? Yaggatva Napunarmoham. Go ahead. No. Tapas is chanting through Zoom, and then you go. Okay. Go ahead, Tapas. Start again.
Yaggatva Napunarmoham
Yaggatva Napunarmoham
Evam Yasasi Pandava
Evam Yasasi Pandava
Yena Bhutani Asheshani
Yena Bhutanya Sheshani
Drakshasasi Atmani Atomai.
Draksasyatman Hitomahi. That's not Tapas. Maybe it is. Go ahead.
My voice has changed.
Oh, your voice. Okay, go ahead. Yeah, Yaggatva. Yaggatva Napunarmoham Evam Yasasi Pandava Yena Bhutanya Sheshani Draksasyatman Hitomahi. Not bad. All right, word by words. Yat, which, Gatva, knowing, na, never, punaha, again, moham, to illusion, evam, like this, yasasi, you shall go, Pandava, O son of Pandu, yena, by which, bhutani, living entities, asheshani, all drakshasi, you will see atmani, in the Supreme Soul, atau, or in other words, mai, in me. Translation. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never fall again into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. Purport. The result of receiving knowledge from a self-realized soul, or one who knows things as they are, is learning that all living beings are parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna. The sense of an existence separate from Krishna is called Maya. Ma, not Ya, this. Some think that we have nothing to do with Krishna, that Krishna is only a great historical personality, and that the Absolute is the impersonal Brahman. Factually, as it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, this impersonal Brahman is the personal effulgence of Krishna. Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the cause of everything. In the Brahma Samhita, it is clearly stated that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes. Even the millions of incarnations are only his different expansions. Similarly, the living entities are also expansions of Krishna. The Mayavadi philosophers wrongly think that Krishna loses his own separate existence in his many expansions. This thought is material in nature. We have experience in the material world that a thing, when fragmentally distributed, loses its own original identity. But the Mayavadi philosophers fail to understand that absolute means that 1 + 1 is equal to 1, and that 1 - 1 is also equal to 1. This is the case in the absolute world. For one of sufficient knowledge in the absolute science, we are now covered with illusion, and therefore we think that we are separate from Krishna. Although we are separated parts of Krishna, we are nevertheless not different from him. The bodily difference of the living entities is Maya, or not actual fact. We are all meant to satisfy Krishna. By Maya alone, Arjuna thought that the temporary bodily relationship with his kinsman was more important than his eternal spiritual relationship with Krishna. The whole teaching of the Gita is targeted toward this end, that a living being, as Krishna's eternal servitor, cannot be separated from Krishna, and his sense of being an identity apart from Krishna is called Maya. The living entities, as separate parts and parcels of the Supreme, have a purpose to fulfill. Having forgotten that purpose since time immemorial, they are situated in different bodies, as men, animals, demigods, etc. Such bodily differences arise from forgetfulness of the transcendental service of the Lord. But when one is engaged in transcendental service through Krishna consciousness, one becomes at once liberated from this illusion. One can acquire such pure knowledge only from the bona fide spiritual master, and thereby avoid the delusion that the living entity is equal to Krishna. Perfect knowledge is that the Supreme Soul, Krishna, is the supreme shelter for all living entities. And giving up such shelter, the living entities are deluded by the material energy, imagining themselves to have a separate identity. Thus, under different standards of material identity, they become forgetful of Krishna. When, however, such deluded living entities become situated in Krishna consciousness, it is to be understood that they are on the path of liberation, as confirmed in the Bhagavatam 2.10.6. Muktir hidbanyata rupam swarupena vavastati. Liberation means to be situated in one's constitutional position as an eternal servitor of Krishna, Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timarandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara. So, these two verses go together, obviously. Text 34 and 35. 34 is this key verse where Krishna talks about the preceptor, the Tattvadarshi. What does Tattvadarshi mean, you know? Darshi is a seer, one who has seen the truth, Tattva. So it's not easy to find such a person. You may find many who claim to see the truth, but to actually be have had the revelation of Krishna's consciousness, and to be as convinced about the truth of God and the soul and relationship and all these different things which are beyond our ability to see with our normal vision and our crippled minds. But to be convinced of that means to have had a revelation. This is a revelation. That's the Krishna consciousness is all about that. We are trying to become qualified for Krishna to reveal himself to us, because he reserves the right to be completely invisible, to stay beyond the range of our ability, our material senses to see or perceive. That's why he's known as Arhokshaja. This is a name for God that means one who is beyond the range of the material senses and mind. Akshaja is knowledge born from the eyes and other senses. And that's what we're surrounded with. This is science, material science. He used the eyes and the instruments that increase the power of the eyes, whether it's the electron microscope or these telescopes they're sending up all the time, to investigate the world. And you can, it's magnificent, it's complicated, it's very complex, and there's so much to learn about the laws of nature that are working and all the things that we know. The science is constantly adding knowledge and building in it. But it's all based on the limited senses and mind. The spirit is beyond that. You cannot see spirit, it doesn't have a weight, it doesn't have a smell or anything like that. And so how do we perceive it? But we ourselves are spirit. We're pure Atma. When people say, "Oh, I have this is my body," I hurt my hand. Who is the I behind the my? If that's your hand, who are you? Prabhupada, this is such a wonderful way of waking people up to the existence of the soul. Children, he often does it with children. Can you put your hand on your head? Okay, this is my head. This is my stomach. These are my feet. This is my body. And who are you? It doesn't have to be children. Anyone can. And it's, I don't know. That's right. And at the beginning of the Gita, Dehi nosmin yata Dehi, he describes how the soul passes through so many bodies, even in this one birth. We've all had little baby bodies, toddler bodies running around, adolescent bodies. Now some of us are middle-aged, some of us are old codgers like me. But you're changing bodies. You say, well, you're growing, but sometimes you're dwindling. You get a certain age. The point is, the body is constantly changing, but the soul stays as it is. There's, so many verses. Avinashi tu tad vidhi yena sarvam vidam tatam means that which pervades this whole body. Gee, what is that? Consciousness. I stub my toe, I feel it, right? You stub your toe, I don't feel it. That's because the body is connected to you through this complicated, the nerves and the whole thing, the consciousness, So you're aware of your body to a certain degree, Certainly the pains, the pleasures are there. So that's what's pervading the whole body. But not the entire body. Just like we have hair or we have fingernails, there's no blood flow there, therefore there's no real consciousness. The blood carries the consciousness throughout the body, bloodstream. So it's an extremely complicated machine each of us has here. And it's a wonderful machine, especially because it's human. Only in the human form of life can you even think about these things. Otherwise, in all of these other bodies we've been through, it's not even, there's not even a chance of questioning these type of things. You're living according to your senses. You're impelled by this and that instinct. You've been born in the body of a dog, and you become an expert barker. You're not going to chant any shlokas. Chant Hare Krishna. Very exceptional. Yeah, there's some. I knew a cat who loved to hear verses from Rupa Goswami. No, he didn't meow. He would paw and purr, and there's obviously something there, but it's very, very rare. The point is that Krishna is saying here, if you approach the spiritual master, now you remember the formula. Tadvidhi, this is text 34. Tadvidhi, tad means that. What are you going to know? The meaning of all of these sacrifices and everything he's spoken about in the previous verses. So you're going to understand that if you follow this formula. First of all, it has to be a Tattvadarshi, someone who's actually seen the absolute truth. So that in itself is not so easy to find. There's so many charlatans and cheaters that are trying to. But we've been very fortunate. Srila Prabhupada came. He's a pure representative of the Sampradaya coming down in the line, giving us the knowledge as it is. And he himself has realized. So surrender and inquiry and service. Paripatena, pariprashnena sevya. This is the formula. And that opens the channel where the spiritual master wants to speak. He's attracted when he sees a service attitude, attentive. Srila Prabhupada had that attentiveness, for eagerness to hear with Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. After some time, it was a few years, Prabhupada he's a householder, he'd been helping the Gaudiya Math, especially in Allahabad, and he was living there 13 years doing his business. And when Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur would come, he would always attend the lectures. I think there was a time where he went to Vrindavan, and he would always hear, even if he couldn't understand. He was listening. So when the time came, he was recommended for initiation. And Bhaktisiddhanta said, "Yes, I've noted he likes to hear. I will certainly initiate Abhay Charan." And he got the name Abhay Charanaravinda Das, meaning the servant of the fearless lotus feet of Krishna. So that eagerness to hear is the first, about Krishna, is the first qualification for going back to Godhead. That's a direct quote from the purport. So, assuming one hears, then, and has the formulas, is surrender, is service attitude, questioning, yadgyatva, receiving that knowledge, upadekshanti te jnanam. The spiritual master will infuse knowledge. He's speaking, just like Prabhupada, the whole time. He was either writing or speaking or imparting knowledge in this way. And so he's giving the knowledge and we're receptive to it. And then he says, knowing that in truth, you will not fall into illusion again. Napuna moham evam yasati pandava. And your vision will change. You will see every living entity as part and parcel of God. And you will see everything as expansion of His energy. This is how we're supposed to see, that we're surrounded by the energy of the Lord. We're never separated. That feeling of separation is the essence of what Maya is all about. And it comes about because of our enjoying attitude, the kama, the material desire to enjoy and exploit nature. And we've been doing that for who knows how many births. In different bodies, we've come up to the human form, misuse it, go down again, down, around and around. That's why we're known as Nitya Buddha. It's been so long that it's virtually eternal, our bondage in this way. But the Nitya Buddhas used to be Nitya Muktas. Means that we were eternally liberated. Well, we weren't eternally enough, because here we are. We've been here so long. But we can return to our natural constitutional position as servants of God, and serving in a very blissful relationship eternally. Ever new, ever fresh. Nothing becomes hackneyed, as it does here. So that's the aim of Krishna consciousness. And the first installment will see everybody. You will never fall into such illusion again, for by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they're mine. So every soul is part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. Now what does this part and parcel mean? Prabhupada compared it sometimes to a sun ray, which has a little bit of heat and a little bit of light, or a drop of ocean water, very appropriate here. If you take a little, a thimbleful of this water out here and you taste it, it'll be salty, because the whole ocean is salty. So we have the qualities of Krishna to a minute degree. We're conscious, we're active, we want to enjoy, and that enjoying spirit has been being misspent through matter, but when it's turned again toward giving Krishna enjoyment, then we'll find ourselves actually enjoying. Just like this chanting of Hare Krishna, whether japa or kirtan. There's a certain something there, there's an energy there. And if you practice it seriously, and you try to understand the knowledge and you control the senses, even to some degree, you'll feel some kind of happiness coming, some kind of peace. You won't feel as put upon by the material energy. So much, I used to be kind of a depressed guy, because I dropped out of college and this and that, and the war was going on. And this was when I was about 20 years old, 20, 21. And I was just, what am I going to do, And so I'm just sort of floating along, got a crummy job, You know how much I made? $1.35 an hour. If you're there for a year, you can move up to $1.45 an hour.
crummy job. It was a Sudra job, electrical supply. I remember carrying these big wires. So what am I doing with this? So then eventually I went back to school, and you know where I lived? I lived about 2 blocks from Tompkins Square Park in the Lower East Side. And I would hear the devotees coming. This was 68. It wasn't at the very beginning, but they were still there. They hadn't moved to Brooklyn. So I would hear them coming down the street, But I was so far away mentally from that I wasn't receptive to them at that time. But that's the environment I was in. But when I went through a bunch of stuff and I started taking up yoga and eventually chanting Hare Krishna mantra, it was just like the cloud lifted from my consciousness. I just felt peaceful. And I felt normal. And I said, "What is this mantra?" I was so curious about the power of the mantra because I was practicing yoga, so I was really meditating on it. I wasn't chanting japa yet. But that's visceral. In other words, something that's substantial, meaning that the experience is there if you just take part in the process a little bit. And then we should have faith that the rest of it is also true. In other words, there's obviously something there to the mantra. And we see all over the world so many people of all different religions and languages and cultures and everything. It's clearly not bound to some historical thing or wherever you're born. It has to do with you being a living entity, of being a soul and being a human being. So it's the greatest kind of unifying force. I remember, hopefully all of you will get to go to Mayapur. Have you ever been to Mayapur?
Oh, I have not.
Have you? Vrindavan, yeah. But in Mayapur, when they have the festival, and the Gaur-Purnima festival, so many thousands of devotees come from all over the world, That's usually in sometime in March. And I went in the 70s, and I went in the 80s, 90s, and I see the changing face of ISKCON. So many. At first, there's no Russians because it's still Soviet, And then I wasn't there the year that they actually came. The first group came. I think it was right after the fall of the Soviet Union. But there's like a majority practically come because it's so easy to get there. Look at the map. Huh? 4-hour flight. Yeah, it's like a 20-hour flight from here. You're 2 days, and because much cheaper. But anyway, it's so wonderful to see all the Russians, enthusiastic and giving their own classes. You go by, and then there's somebody in Russian language, and the Chinese have come now. There's a lot of Chinese coming in from all over the world. And this was the vision of Bhaktivinoda Thakur. When will that day come when the Russians and the Americans and the Germans come to join the Bengalis and chant? So when you experience that, and you may not know so much of the Shastra and everything, but it's visceral, it's real, then your faith grows that it's something I really want to experience, as deeply as possible. So this is, and Prabhupada is emphasizing the theme of the verse here, the knowledge. And when we obtain knowledge by surrender, service, and inquiry to the right person, then that informs our whole life. When you really think about it, what you do in your life, what you aspire for, how you see yourself in the world, depends on the knowledge you have. And oftentimes that knowledge is illusory. In other words, it's false. To believe something that's false is the greatest calamity, and that's what we're all doing. That's what it means to be in Maya. To believe I am this body, I am so old, I have this race, I have this family, I have this relation, this and that. But it's all Maya's trick. Because as soon as you leave this body, it's all gone. The bank account is gone, the intimate relations with your family, it all comes down to nothing. It's just like it blows away in the wind. It's a dream, exactly, just like a dream. It can seem very real while you're in it, but then when you wake up, you say, oh, it's just a dream. Like I often say, when materialists die, the first thing that's so shocking, hey, I'm not dead. What's going on here? Who are those guys? There's no death. Najayate, mriyate bhagadat. you know, read the sixth canto, the beginning with the story of Ajamil. It's right in our wheelhouse, you know, because here's a fellow who was a good Brahmin, you know. It doesn't say he was a pure devotee, but he was a serious Brahmin, you know. He goes out to the forest to collect some wood, and there he sees a, you know, low-class couple embracing, you know, and he can't control his mind because, you know, he didn't have the assets of bhakti. It was all like intellectual. He knows this is Maya, he shouldn't do it, you know. But he's not chanting Hare Krishna. He's not praying to the Lord, oh, please save me. Oh, Nrsingadev, you know. And so he got attracted, and, you know, the whole story. So his whole life, he's a rogue and a rascal. He's got so many children with the prostitute, you know. But because of his upbringing, he names at least the last one, and probably all of them, you know, after names of Krishna. So he's 80 years old. He's got a 3-year-old child. You can see that he's, you know, yeah, yes. Probably has 20 other kids roaming around. But his youngest son was Narayan. And, you know, he had a tremendous amount of affection for him. So when he's about to die, here comes, and it's describing graphically, you know, here come the Yamadutas with their fierce outlook, you know, and blazing eyes, angry, ready to rank him out of his body and pull him off to hell for punishment. Yamaraj, judge, because he was sinful his whole life. But he chanted Narayan. He didn't chant it offensively because he's calling his son. It's not like he was planning to counteract the sinful activities with that, you know. He's just chanting from the bottom of his heart, Narayan, Narayan, help me, you know, like that. He may have been addressing his son, but the real Narayan responded. And suddenly the Vishnu-dutas are there, stopping the Yamadutas, you know. And he's seeing all this, he's witnessing what's going on. And the Yamadutas weren't too bright. They said, well, what are you coming here for? Look, he did all these sins, you know. Yeah, but the holy name is so powerful, you chant it once offensively and you get rid of them all. There's a beautiful verse. Haridas Thakur is visiting Raghunath Das Goswami's family. You know, he was in a very wealthy family before he left and joined Lord Chaitanya. Multi-millionaires. They were great big landholders. His father, Hiranya Majumdar, Hiranya means gold. And that was his uncle, and his father was Govardhan Majumdar. And he was the only son. So he had, you know, scheduled to become he had a beautiful wife and everything. So they invited Haridas Thakur, he was touring, to come and speak about the holy name. And they were, you know, Vaishnavas. They were all serious Vaishnavas. So there was also a kind of a materialist there, a Brahmin who was a tax collector. And he was in the meeting. And when Haridas Thakur started to say, you know, explain how even just once chanting sincerely the holy name, you get liberation. You get free of all your sins, and you know, and if you don't sin again, then you're liberated. Well, he didn't believe it. He said, that can't be true. And if it's not true, I'll cut off your nose. Haridas Thakur, you know, this Namacharya. So there was a great offense, and they'd get out of our, you know, you're fired, you know, get out of our, he was a tax collector for them, you know. But then they asked Haridas Thakur to explain why it was true. What is the Shastric backing for that? So he chanted this beautiful verse that has a special meter to it. Maybe you can pick up on it. Listen to this one, Suresh. Anghak sanghadatakilang sakaduriyade vasakalalokasya tadanide batamala jaladin jayajita gan mangalang hare nama. So Haridas Thakur proceeded to give the translation as well as an explanation of this verse. So I took those two things and I put it into a poem. And it's very pertinent to our discussion. So he says, he gives an analogy. When the moon is invisible, now you have to go back 500 years before electricity. So when the sun sets, and if it's a new moon, meaning there's no moon, it's really dark, super dark, and everyone takes rest. They used to get a lot more sleep in those days, 12 hours of sleep. No screens to turn on, no phones, you know, no electric lights, just a lot of rest. So it says, when the moon is invisible, withered to nil, and the sun is long gone from the sky, then an ocean of darkness envelops this world, and the timorous fear they might die. Timorous means easily frightened. The timorous fear they might die, but that thick pall of gloom is at once swept away when the first signs of sunrise appear, and the dawning of day gives assurance to all that in truth there is nothing to fear. In a similar way, when illusion holds sway, and the soul has forgotten his Lord, and the darkness of ignorance covers his heart. Sin and suffering are his reward. But as soon as he says, you can't chant once, chant means to repeat. But as soon as he says Krishna's name even once, in a manner that doesn't offend, then his ignorance flees like the darkness at dawn, and his sin and his suffering end. So there's nothing to fear, for the sun of the name has appeared with his powers divine. In your heart may that sun, benedictive for all, become fixed and eternally shine. So this is the power of the holy name. And that's the central practice that we're undergoing. This is the mercy. Like this morning I gave class, and I was describing how those who really are Aryans and who are wise, they understand, they worship this Kali Yuga. Because once every day of Brahma, Krishna comes to earth and reenacts his pastimes, like that. And in the Kali Yuga, after he comes as Lord Chaitanya. You know how long a day of Brahma is? Over 8 billion years. Are we lucky or what? We have the lottery ticket, So we should cash it in. We're in this age. So the verse goes like this: Kaling sabhaji antyaya guna gya sarabhaginaha yatra sankitane naiva sarva sarto bilabhite. The very wonderful verse. It says, those who really understand the essence of things, who are Aryans, who are spiritually oriented, they worship this Kali Yuga. Because in this Kali Yuga alone, you can get all of your... Actually, there's something called the svarta. Arta means something valuable. In certain contexts, it just means money. Arta gyasarartati gyani chabaratashabha. Because 4 kinds of people come to me. Those who want wealth, those who are curious, those who want knowledge, So, but your sva-arta is the thing that's most valuable to the soul. Sva means your own. So the svarta is Krishna, is awakening to your relation to Krishna, going back home, back to Godhead. So you can easily achieve that in this age by the process of Sankirtan. Yatra Sankirtanenaiva, Sarva Svarta, all of your most ardent, real desires can be fulfilled. So here we are in the Kali Yuga, and we're in the Sankirtan movement. And so we should try our best to do it right, follow the process. There's no dearth of instruction Srila Prabhupada has given, what to do and what not to do. This little book we have, the Nectar of Instruction, written by Rupa Goswami, 11 verses. I remember when that book came out, probably 76, probably wrote it. And it's essential instructions. The first one is about the Guru. Bhacho Vegam, Manasak Krodha Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Unaropasta Vegam. You can see someone who is controlling the mind and the words only about Krishna. Bhacho Vegam. The Vegam means a pushing. It's like a talk. If you ever, I used to ride the buses in New York sometimes. Everybody's jabbering. They come together and they're all jabbing constantly. There's always something. Sukadeva Goswami says at the beginning of the second canto, Maharaj Parikshit has just asked this question, this essential question. What should one do? What should one hear? What should one chant? How should you place your mind when death is approaching? He had 7 days to live. He knew it. He had been cursed to die in 7 days. How to spend that time? 100% of the time. Every hour and minute of those 7 days he spent in hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from the best speaker, Sukadeva Goswami. Perfectly spent, and he completely transcended. Was bitten by the snake, went back to Godhead. But the question is, what should one hear? So Sukadeva Goswami says, wonderful question, excellent question. The question and the answer to the question is beneficial to everybody. One who hears it, the speaker, and then one who listens in. On the other hand, Shrotavyajini Rajendra Ninang Santi Sahasrasha Apashyatam Atma Tattvam Griheshu Grahamedinam. Notice he says Apashyatam Atma Tattvam. Those who cannot see, have no vision for the real Atma Tattva, the truth of the soul. They have millions of things. He says thousands, but with the internet you can multiply it by millions. Millions of subject matters for hearing. Other than, who am I? Who is God? What's the relationship? How can I be awakened? The most important questions. Millions of things. And then he describes the essential, meaningless life, tragic life of the materialist. Nidrya rede naktam. vivayena chabhavayak. Divachartahiya rajan kudumbam bananena va. At night, wasting time is too much sleep. Or sex life. And during the day, in the day, where's money? Where's money? Let's make some money. And on the weekend, I swear, Prabhupada used this, one of his explanations of this verse, he used this word. And on the weekend, shopping. To support the family and everything. Kutumba. Kutumba means your family. And then, you know, you feel vulnerable. There's so many things to scare you. So you want to have soldiers. These are called fallible soldiers. Deha patta karatradishu atma sainyeshu asatvapi tesham matonadanam pasyanapina pashyati. Begins with the body. You got to have a strong body. You know, health. You can get online, find out just, you know, how to do proper exercise and everything. So the first thing, the body. But then you have the children, the wife, extra family, right? And you can expand it, of course, the bank account, the insurance, everything. And guns in America, you know, they have their own guns. There's more guns than people, but only about 20% of the people have guns. You know, because they have whole arsenals, hundreds of guns. Six guns? Yeah, but some people have a lot more. I know people have. So what is that? It's so crazy. Does that really give you security? Yeah. What about all the crazy people who can also get guns? Every day now there's some mass shooting.
It happened today?
I know. And you go back a week and you'll find there's only 3 people killed. You know, it's madness. So that's because people are in complete illusion. They're down. The modes of the ignorance are taking over. Fear, anger, you know, resentment, and just what is the result of the mode of ignorance? Madness is one of them. So, how to become sane again? So Shukadev Goswami goes on. Even though they see that these soldiers have failed everybody else, nobody has survived. The body is certainly fallible. The wife, you know, Pramato nidanam pashyan means they see, but they don't see. Pashyan up in the pashyati. So much seeing. Just we started out the verses about seeing. You remember the tattvadarshi, one who has seen. You have to receive from him. Then you can also see. But here they don't see. So therefore, he says, instead of following this route of self-destruction, he says, Tasmat Bharata Sarvatma Bhagavan Ishwaro Hari Shotavyakritavyasta Smartavyakche Achitabayam. If you want fearlessness at the time of death, because we're all going to face that, here's what you have to do between now and then. Bharata, he addresses him at Bharata, the great descendant of King Bharat. This is a Parikit, the whole family. Then he gives 4 definitions of God. Sarvatma, Bhagavan, Ishwaro, Hari. Sarvatma means the super soul in everyone. Bhagavan is Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishwara, Supreme Controller. Hari, he who takes away all of your karma and everything. So what should you do? Hear, Shotavya, chant, and remember. Smartiva, Ichitabayam. For those who want fearlessness at that time of death, this is the formula. One verse. And then he gives an essential verse. These are all famous verses. He says, Etavan. Now, if you study the Bhagavatam, you'll come upon so many verses that begin with this word, Etavan. And you'll find that they're all kind of summary verses. They're all like essential verses. So here he says, Etavan, Sankhya Yogabhyam, Swadharma Parinishtaya, Janma Labhak Parakpangsam, Ante Narayana Smriti. Now, if you forget the whole verse, I don't expect you to remember, but just remember that last line. Ante Narayana Smriti. At the end, Ante, of life, to remember Smriti Narayan, or Krishna. Whatever you do in terms of Sankhya Yoga, your Dharma, your Yoga, whatever it is, it'll be successful if at the end of your life you can remember Narayan, or remember Krishna. So the best chance you have to do it is to cultivate Krishna consciousness between now and then. So that you come to the point, I think I made this point recently about, at the end of the Bhagavatam, in the 12th canto, 12th chapter, there are 8 verses about the importance. It starts out with the word Sankirtan. Sankirtamano Bhagavan Ananta. One who is hearing and chanting about Bhagavan, Krishna from within, he keeps purifying the heart. This is in the second chapter also. So it goes backwards and forwards, but it comes in the glories of hearing and chanting, because it leads to remembrance. And the gold standard of remembrance, avismriti, means no forgetting. Because we're all remembering Krishna, but we're also forgetting periodically. We're reenacting our fall from the spiritual world every day. Because we're chanting, we're doing something, remembering Krishna, but then there's a certain point where the mind takes over and we forget Krishna. So, but to cultivate and hear and chant and do it right, to come to the point of constant remembrance, it's called avismriti. Avismriti, not forgetting. Avismriti Krishna padada vindyo, constant remembrance of Krishna's lotus feet. Here's the result of that, to come to that point. Chinotya badrani, it destroys everything inauspicious in your life. Ashang tanoti, and expands your welfare, your spiritual welfare. Everything becomes auspicious. Those two, that one line. Chinotya badrani chashang tanoti. Sattvasya shuddhim, it purifies your existence. Everything about you becomes pure. The original consciousness that we have wakens up. It's just covered. Cheto darpana marjanam, polishing the mirror of the heart. Everything is in there, but it's covered now for so long, but it becomes uncovered. That sattvasya shuddhim, which results in paramatma bhaktim, devotional service to the Supreme Soul Krishna, characterized by jnana, knowledge. Who am I? What is this world? What is the Lord? All this knowledge. And vijnana, realized knowledge. Krishna appears to you in direct experience. And vairagya, detachment from everything material. So this is the result of this achieving that constant remembrance of Krishna, which can be achieved. We can aspire for it, to follow the program that Prabhupada laid out. The chanting of the holy name is the essence of the whole thing. And so that's the auspicious result of getting this knowledge. Yeah, go ahead, because it's kind of late. Yeah, I have. What happened? You have. Okay, go ahead.
So much earlier in the class, thank you for the class, fantastic class. Really
Hare
enjoyed
Krishna.
it. Hare Krishna. So earlier you said that the body can grow, but
Will
the
grow.
soul does not.
Doesn't
So my
grow.
question is, so through spiritual study and whatever, we don't enhance our soul, or our soul is already 100%, and this whatever we do just reveals our soul to us?
Yes, because the soul does not change.
We cannot increase our.
We don't increase.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. But
And
we're only experiencing our spirit to a small degree now, to experience our full spiritual identity.
So there's no growth of the soul. It is
no growth.
what it is for eternity.
Yes.
And everyone's is the same.
That's right in the
Everyone's
Gita.
is the same in terms of.
Basically, yeah,
Yeah,
same.
okay.
But there's a variety. We're all individuals. In our spiritual body, Prabhupada quotes this famous line here from the second canto. What is mukti? Mukti hit vanjita rupam sorupena vavasati. Mukti is not just merging, some kind of merging into some impersonal void or Brahman, but it is giving up all of our false forms, which includes this body and all the other bodies we've had, and living in and discovering our real swarup. We all have an original form. But we're running out of time.
So even though it feels like our soul is growing, we're just perceiving it.
Yeah,
It's not changing. We're seeing it more.
Right. We're seeing
Okay.
the body change.
Okay, I get that.
But we get more. All right. We're really running out of time. So.
Yeah, just quickly. So we were talking about experiences also.
Uh-huh.
I met a roommate, my last roommate this afternoon, and I've heard this from a lot of people. They say they do mushrooms, psychedelics, or different ayahuasca and whatnot. And they say, we saw Lord Shiva, we saw Lord Vishnu, we had so many experiences. So I was wondering, we get sweetness when we chant, we also get a lot of happiness. We have different, me personally, I don't know about you, but why don't we get those experiences which they get from psychedelics?
Well, I'm glad we don't, because it's just wishful thinking. You can't see Shiva by some or Vishnu by some psychedelic. He must have seen.
Oh, no, no. I do have a bit, that's funny. I do have a bit of an explanation for that, just to be quick. So these drugs, these substances, they are actually poison. So they are not meant for our bodies. They are poison. So what is happening is that the body is being brought close to death. And those individuals are then becoming closer to the spiritual realm, away from their body. And so they may see these things, and it can be a realization of the soul, but you're only seeing that because you're dying.
Uh-huh. All right, on that note, all glories to the Prabhupada. We got to prepare for the arti.
So we will resume tomorrow, text 37. Hare Krishna.